Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well. So today I've got another video for you in my non-fiction history series, and today I'm going to be reviewing The Strangest Family, The Private Lives of George III, Queen Charlotte and the Hanoverians by Janice Hadlow. This of course is a massive hardback edition and I absolutely love it. I think it's beautiful. Let me just show you the end papers. Ta-da! It's lots of little miniature portraits. I think they're fantastic. But they do also do a paperback version of this as well, so I will leave links for both the hardback and the paperback version in the description box below if you're interested after this video of getting your hands on them. So you might be thinking, where on earth did this love with this book come to? Why are you reviewing this book? After all, I am very honest, the fact that my love of history actually started with the Tudors. I'm also a massive lover of the early 20th century history, the Edwardians. I love the Flappers, I love Art Deco, I love wartime history, I love all of that. I love early 20th century history. So you might be thinking, why are you reviewing this? Now, my love of this book actually started a couple of years ago when I went to Cheltenham Literature Festival. It all stems from Cheltenham. And Janice Hadlow was doing a talk on George III, so me and my friend went along because I thought, I don't really know that much about George III. Or the Hanoverians in general, really. So me and my friend went along and the talk was just amazing. Honestly, it was one of these talks that I was a little bit worried about going to be honest. I was thinking, oh, what if we don't like it? But it wasn't. It was absolutely amazing and I loved it so much. Of course, I got myself a signed copy dedicated all to me and went home and just had to start reading it as soon as, really. Getting on to the book. The book starts right at the beginning of the Hanoverians and actually at the end of the Stuart line. So if you don't really know what happened, basically Queen Anne was the last of the Stuart line. After her death, because she had no surviving children, we had to kind of go back through history and we had to work out who was the next heir, because the person that was going to be the next heir was someone that was not a Catholic. We didn't want another Catholic monarch on the throne. So we went through history and we came up with the Hanoverians, the Georges. So it talks briefly about that kind of period and George I coming over, and then talk about George II, briefly talking about his son as well, and then talking about George II's grandson, which is the main body of the book, which is George III. Once we kind of get into the main body of the book, we talk about George III, talk about his marriage to Queen Charlotte, talk about their kind of love and suitability and things like this. We talk about her as a person. We then talk about him and his rulership style and what he wanted to achieve as king. And of course we then talk about his children and his heirs that him and Charlotte produce. Now they produce no less than 15 children. Blah. That poor woman, and they started when she was quite young as well, so I do feel quite sorry for her. And we talk about her production of children over the years, what impact this had on her and their marriage, and of course what impact this had as him as a ruler, him as a king. Something that I really enjoyed about this book was hearing the fact that George III, like any great dad, gets on the floor, gets on his hands and knees and plays with his children. It was lovely to see that kind of thing. He absolutely loved his children. He absolutely loved doting on them. As the children grew up, it was interesting to hear that he was definitely more kind of loving his daughters rather than his sons, because obviously his sons are the heirs. Whereas the daughters are just someone that he can keep. But it was quite a shame to the girls because despite the fact that obviously they absolutely loved their father, they wanted to get married, but he wouldn't let them, you know. It was one of these difficult things. He just didn't want to let go of his girls because he wanted to keep them as little girls forever. And it was really interesting to hear, and your heart does go out to quite a few of them. And it was lovely to hear some of their stories, which I think is fantastic because when you think about, we're talking about George III and Queen Charlotte, we do think we're going to think about their reign, but it was actually almost a kind of big brother thing. I felt like I was being transported at Windsor or somewhere like that. I just felt like I was being plopped there and I was observing, like Fanny Burney was and all the other people. I felt like I was just observing their everyday life and I was seeing them in their chambers reading their books, as Queen Charlotte was a massive reader. I think she had like 4,500 books, something ridiculous like that. She was a massive reader. And what's fantastic about this book, which is different to all the others, it did feel like kind of a Big Brother style. It did kind of feel like we are the eye watching down below, rather than actually just kind of reading about their lives. It felt like I was part of it and I was actually observing firsthand. Another great thing about this book is the use of primary evidence. I am one of these people that if there isn't primary evidence, or that much primary evidence placed within a non-fiction text, I do tend to get a little bit annoyed, because I don't think it's that difficult. You've obviously found that evidence, you know, please back it up. And she does that brilliantly through a lot of diary entries, a lot of letters, a lot of journals. There's so many different things, and a lot of the things are actually written by the family themselves or close to. So obviously we do have people like Fanny Burney's journals, which are very famous for documenting their lives. She definitely documents a lot of when Charlotte is still kind of childbearing. But in later on, when we're talking about the princesses and their kind of matrimonies and wanting to get married, we have a lot of letters, kind of love letters to and from. Again, a lot of diaries, a lot of journals. It's absolutely lovely. But I think the most amazing thing about this book, which is absolutely incredible, which has kind of made it a book for me that has got to be one of my favourite books of all time now. It sits right up there, is because this, to date, is the only non-fiction book that has ever made me cry. Now, I am not a crier at books. I have cried at, well, 2 books now, but the only book that I cried prior to this was an historical fiction book. So it was fiction, you know, it was a work of fiction, and I cried at that. It was probably about 10 years ago now, though. And then I was reading a passage through this, and I cried. That took me by surprise. I never in a million years thought I would cry at another book, let alone cry at a non-fiction book, because after all, it is fact. That's how much this book is kind of like that Big Brother thing. I did feel like I was literally just watching their lives take place. I felt like I was there, and I cried, and not just kind of welled up, I literally, tears were pouring down my face, and I was just like, I need a tissue. I absolutely loved and adored it, and yeah, it's amazing. It's so, the writing for this is quite unusual because it's a non-fiction. So why is it that I'm crying? It's because the way that Janice writes is so emotionally engaging. It's not as if she's telling facts. It's like she's telling the story of their lives, the biography of each of them, and it's lovely and beautiful. And finally, another great thing about this book is the endings. Sometimes endings in non-fiction is kind of, you know when you're at uni and you have to write all those essays and the conclusion is just got to conclude everything like that. Sometimes non-fiction books feel a bit like that. But with this one, she puts something fresh in right at the very end. And you leave the book with a fresh, heartwarming feeling about the family. And I have honestly got to say that this, for me, is now one of my favourite books of all time. And it has inspired, for me, a love of the Georgian period. So now that I've read this, I'm actually going to go and I'm going to research some of the daughters. I'm also going to research more about the Georgian period in general, because it is absolutely fantastic and it's fascinating. And to be honest, I thought the Tudors was like a soap drama. This is incredible and amazing, and it's quite annoying really that there aren't any more kind of big books about the Georgian period, and there needs to be more. And yeah, so loved it. I'm going to stop rambling about it now. If you can't work it out, I did give it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads because it's absolutely incredible and amazing, and definitely one to read and pick up in the future. Now, time-wise, this did take me about, I don't know, about a year to read. You might think, gosh, that's a long time. No, because I've actually read it twice, which might sound a bit strange because it was that beautiful and emotionally engaging that I read a paragraph and then go back and reread it again. And I had such a lovely experience with this. When it was kind of nice outside, I'd go and sit outside in front of the pond and just watch the world go by while reading this book, When it was a bit colder, I got snuggled up on the sofa with candles lit around me. I thoroughly enjoyed this reading experience, and I have to let you into a little secret. Now that I've actually finished it, I've actually started rereading this because it's incredible and amazing and I want to learn more. So that's it. That is my review of The Strangest Family by Janice Hadlow. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, let me know in the comments section down below if you're interested in picking it up or if you're going to read it in the future, or in fact if you've already read it and what your thoughts are on it. If you're new to my channel, then please hit that subscribe button. It would honestly mean the world to me. And take care, and I shall see you soon for my next video. Bye for now.